Hello everyone and welcome to another ASUG affiliate webcast. My name is Susan Revoletto, Membership Support Specialist here at ASUG headquarters in Chicago. I will be your moderator for this event. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this presentation. Today's webcast, Why Infrastructure Matters for SAP Workloads, is brought to you by Nutanix. Today's webcast is being recorded. That recording and the accompanying slides will be posted to the ASUG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. Our speakers today are Sachin Chedda, Director of Solutions Marketing at Nutanix, Tag Robertson, SAP Alliance Manager from Lenovo, and Krishna Katumaram, Senior Director of Solutions and Performance Engineering from Nutanix. I'd like to remind our audience members that you can submit questions at any time during the presentation by clicking the purple Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to turn it over to Tag.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining today, and pleased to speak with you today about cloud solutions for SAP Applications and in partnership with Nutanix. And today we're going to talk about the partnership that Lenovo has with Nutanix and some of the key innovations that this solution can deliver for your SAP application environments. Looking at it from a business and solution perspective, and also as to how this solution can help simplify and ease the management of your SAP application landscapes. The partnership between Lenovo and Nutanix really was kicked off just over a year ago, publicly announced, and offers very good potential for customers that are running SAP applications and are looking to optimize those landscapes. From a Lenovo standpoint, we have a strong heritage in the enterprise server space, coming from the IBM heritage that we had as part of the System X brand at IBM, now at Lenovo. We have a strong presence in customer SAP landscapes, and a strong presence, and have been leading with SAP HANA adoption globally. And to this point, we've shipped more than 6,200 HANA systems worldwide, and have had significant interest from customers in our offerings. And from a Nutanix standpoint, the relationship really kicked off and has grown significantly and offers significant potential. I don't know, Sasha, if you want to kind of comment on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Tag. So yeah, as a part of this partnership, our goal is really to help simplify customers' data centers. So working together with the leading vendor of servers from uptime, reliability, and customer satisfaction perspective, we're able to really deliver solutions that positively disrupt the data center, so reducing some of the costs, overhead, et cetera. And that's what we're going to be exploring here in the next few slides. So as a part of this whole environment, one thing that you'll hear us talk about is the concept of cloud. And this is an important point. I want to make sure that people understand this. Now, it may seem a little more salesy, a little more marketing oriented, but I do want to make sure that folks internalize the concepts behind this. And that's the cloud era is pretty much underway right now. This is an interesting time, especially as AWS and Azure and the rest of the team talk about the concept of public cloud. IT shops are now clamoring for the characteristics of those public clouds in their own data centers. So they're basically looking for things like rapid time to market, fractional consumption from an IT perspective, the simplicity that they're used to with a hosted offering, a one-click simplicity, and the fact that they are being targeted with the new innovation that is rolled out in a continuous basis. These are things that are really characteristic of the cloud. And our goal, again, working with Lenovo, is to bring these types of characteristics of deploying applications in 5 minutes, being able to deliver a very efficient model from a consumption perspective and a utilization perspective, and to deliver more innovation on a regular basis. We're intending to bring those innovations to an SAP landscape. Now, Tag, we talked in our prep call about the whole concept of data center evolution. Do you want to cover this slide, or would you like me to do so?
No, go ahead. You can cover this one from your perspective, sure.
Fantastic. Okay. So in the past, we've talked a lot about the concept of servers and separate storage. And even though the world moved to what is known as a converged infrastructure, which simplified the deployment cycle, a lot of the fundamental challenges around management, day 2 operations and day 3 operations remain with the 3-tier or multi-tier environment where server, storage, network, and management were all separated out. And this was something that we targeted to solve with what we call the hyperconverged infrastructure. Now, this is a term that you're going to hear time and again, hyperconverged infrastructure. And in this approach, we essentially are merging the storage functionality with the server. So the storage that previously sat separately is now running as a function, a software function on top of the server, and therefore you no longer have a separated storage out. Now, the server itself is now made powerful because, again, we're working very closely with Intel for processors and compute, and you'll see that now we're in an era where there's plenty of compute, and functions like software-defined storage can be easily accommodated on the same servers that are running your SAP Netweaver stack and your Oracle RDBMS. And the goal is really to drive higher efficiency from that perspective. So again, the first step, again, moving away from the converged infrastructure model is with hyperconvergence, where you essentially are running your storage as a part of that. And this is something that we introduced in the 2011-2012 timeframe as we launched that environment. So again, something that we saw. But again, adding to that, we are now making sure that we're bringing a lot of the same characteristics as the cloud to this environment. And this is where we're looking at the characteristics of what is the management plane associated with this, how to add functionality like self-provisioning, automation, etc. And this is also where we're looking at virtualizing other functions as well. So again, working with Lenovo, we're able to drive higher efficiency, we're able to drive higher availability using these characteristics all the way from software-defined networking to improved management, etc. So again, if I were to summarize this slide, is that the world is evolving, going back to the traditional stack where everything was separated out. And again, this makes up for the bulk of the SAP infrastructure deployments today, to hyperconvergence, where software was being used to run the storage functions, to an enterprise cloud where there's different services, etc., and virtualizing other elements of the stack, including networking, etc. And this represents a simplicity. Now, from a Nutanix perspective, we've worked very closely with Lenovo to bring some of the value of what we do to the Lenovo platforms in terms of the HX. Now, visually, if you look at it, this is essentially where on the left-hand side you'll see a traditional environment where you have servers, you have multiple storage controllers, etc., with storage network, which was running a virtualization layer. And the purpose of this virtualization layer was to run the applications. And these applications can include Netweaver application stack, ECC6, the RDBMS, whether it's SQL Server, SAP ASE, or Oracle databases, etc. So the goal was really to manage and maintain all the stuff below the virtualization layer, including the virtualization layer, just to run the application. And that was not very efficient. So what Nutanix and Lenovo did with our HX product is essentially integrate the compute, the storage, the virtualization, and the management into one package using the same virtualization stack that people are familiar with, that are comfortable with, and adding new ones too, that we'll talk a little bit about that, again, to run the same set of applications. There is no difference from an application perspective. The only difference that we're seeing here is we're making the stack below the application practically invisible. Now, from a performance perspective, again, the way we've designed this is using what we call a web scale model. Web scale stands for the characteristics that you would see in the internet pioneers like Google, etc., where they basically created a setup that linearly scales, where they're taking advantage of software-defined functionality. And we're bringing that same characteristics to the Lenovo HX, where we can start small with essentially a 3-node cluster. 3 nodes are basically is a server, and we'll talk a little bit about the architecture here in the next slide, and then linearly scale 1 node at a time or 1 server at a time. And in each case, you're adding both compute and storage to the mix, and the performance that you get from a storage perspective is truly linear in nature. And that's the difference between a normal system and a system that is designed with a web scale architecture or web scale design, where you can scale in a linear fashion. Imagine a scenario where you need to double the storage performance associated with your box. You simply double the number of nodes you have in your environment. There is no marginal rate of return from that perspective. And the advantage also of this is that you can mix and match different generations of architectures. So as soon as a processor has been validated by SAP, an Intel processor that has been validated by SAP, you can plug it into the same cluster. So for example, if you are an existing Lenovo HX customer running Haswell processors, and most recently we've certified now Broadwell processors, they're both able to coexist in the same cluster, and you're able to take advantage of that, essentially bringing Moore's law innovation and performance enhancements to your clusters without requiring a forklift upgrade. Tag, I'm going to see if you're around. If you want to quickly talk about the architecture in a bit, and then talk about the foundation itself.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And the architecture is unique, and it's very well suited to the SAP Business Suite virtualized landscape. If you look at these landscapes, they can often be comprised of application servers, which have kind of varying utilization rates for the server platform, and it provides an opportunity really to consolidate the application tier on a scalable server infrastructure that can easily be managed, and so it gives you the flexibility to move workloads, backup workloads, take advantage of all of the benefits of virtualization in a very scalable fashion. It complements well the database tier. You could even integrate for traditional databases the database tier as well. So depending on what your policies are for test, dev, QA environments, you may find that very attractive, having the consolidated landscapes. And then there's other considerations for production, but certainly there's potential there as well, depending on what your practice and policies are.
Yep, indeed. Tag, there was a question that came in on the Q&A window. Now, we were saying that we're going to move all the questions to the end, but this one was very interesting and important. So they were asking what processors do the HX use, or what systems are these based on? I'm assuming you'll cover that later?
Yes, we'll cover that in a few minutes. That's true. Generally, they're based on the Lenovo systems, either 1U, 2U systems that use the Intel E5 generation processors.
Fantastic. So we talked a little bit about the whole concept of running SAP Business Suite and SAP landscapes there. Could you walk through the architecture in a little more detail? We talked a little bit about Intel processors itself.
Yeah, from an architecture perspective, certainly you can use this architecture based on a scalable set of systems and have the ability to consolidate the application tier, for example, with multiple VMs, SAP application VMs, be able to clone and take snapshots of those applications and provide the ability to scale them as the number of users grows or other factors, storage requirements grow to support your landscape.
Indeed. Okay. And then if we go into the architecture a little bit, if I can jump right in here, Tag.
Sure.
These systems, as Tag mentioned earlier, are your state-of-the-art x86 systems using Intel processors. But attached to each system, you have flash and disk drives. Now, we also have HX models that are all flash in nature, so you again get the choice of the type of processor. So if you're doing, say, a single instance Oracle database, you can choose high frequency, low core count node for the best performance, etc. And then you can also choose the type of flash and the type of disk drives that you have in there. Now, the first thing that happens on these HX systems is you boot up the hypervisor. And from an SAP perspective, again, we support 3 different hypervisors, and we'll go into a little more detail on that in the future, but I'll just list it out here. We support VMware ESXi. We support Microsoft Hyper-V, which is Windows Server 2012 R2, and very soon, hopefully more. And then we also support the Nutanix AHV hypervisor. This is, again, the Nutanix hypervisor there. And once the hypervisor boots, we boot up our CVM. The CVM stands for the controller virtual machine. There's one controller virtual machine per node. Now, the CVM is where all the intelligence lies. This is basically where you have all the magic happen. The CVM itself takes ownership of the local storage, and it pieces it all together in a single pool using a distributed storage fabric. So all the flash across all the different servers, all the flash and disk drives are combined into a single pool and essentially exposed back out to the hypervisor. And then you boot up your virtual machines. As Tag mentioned earlier, these are the application servers, these are the databases, etc. And they access storage normally as they would. So again, from a virtual machine perspective, from an application perspective, it's no different than what folks are used to already, and everything is basically then organized in a way where you basically get all the availability features. So it's industry leading performance, industry leading availability, etc., with functionality like snapshot, cloning, tiering, compression, deduplication, etc., all possible here. And from a scalability perspective, it's also important to point out that this can be scaled in a non-disruptive fashion. So you essentially add additional nodes, which will boot up the hypervisor and then the CVM, and it will be joined into the overall cluster. And this is, again, done automatically. So there's a protocol that basically goes out, announces the addition of a certain node, and it gets automatically added. There is no manual intervention needed from a scale perspective. Now, from an upgrades perspective, it's also important to point out that all software upgrades are non-disruptive in nature. So you can upgrade that, and Tag, you'll cover that a little more in detail later on. Now, from a management perspective, we also have what is known as our Prism interface. Now, in a traditional environment, what we're showing here is essentially the number of interfaces we have to deal with on a platform like a FlexPod. And you'll see there's a separate management console or management interface for the storage, is separate for the actual blade server, separate for everything else. And the idea is that the administrator, maybe not the basis administrator, but maybe somebody else, has to deal with this. And the intent is that they have to make sure that everything is orchestrated. Now, a lot of people claim that, okay, we're using automation, using provisioning, etc. to do it. It's still complicated. It's still loosely integrated. What Nutanix has done is basically simplify this with an environment that is intuitive in nature. We're inspired by some consumer-grade design, aka things like the smartphone, etc., to make it very clean, very easy. So the initial provisioning itself takes no more than an hour, if not 2. And as a function of using this, you essentially are dealing with this and the XClarity software. Now, at a glance, you get information around performance, etc. So the intent is to really have an integrated consumer-grade management solution there as a part of your deployment. Now, in addition to the concept of scale, performance, and ease of management, another area that we've invested in is security. And we all know that all SAP deployments are mission critical or business critical in nature. And so what we've done is right from the get-go, we've embedded security into the process. So a full stack security solution that is incorporated. as a part of the security lifecycle. So we go through, assess, measure, and report on a regular basis to make sure that everything is properly secured. And as a function of this, we end up creating essentially a security technical implementation guide. This is a guide that is machine readable in nature that validates what are the different interfaces so you can secure an environment in very short order. In addition to that, this platform is certified across a wide range of certifications and agencies, including EAL2. Now, one of the things that people ask us is, well, a lot of these security threats come from inside an organization where people accidentally leave things open, etc. And to solve that problem, we've implemented what is known as automated validation and self-healing. So using technology that is available in other security solutions, we basically incorporate that into our own environment where we are able to monitor on a regular basis any deviations from a standard configuration and then revert back to a known good state if any deviations occur. And this is done on a regular basis without any intervention. So it really simplifies that process. In addition to that, Lenovo and Nutanix together are working with a wide range of partners around areas like firewall, malware detection and prevention, antivirus, microsegmentation, and most importantly, encryption and key management. So again, you have the satisfaction of knowing this is a fully vetted solution. It is by no means an isolated incident. So if I were to quickly recap the last few slides, we're talking about performance, scalability, architecture, management, and now security. Now, from an innovation perspective, we've also invested quite heavily on making our process more efficient. And you'll notice that most recently, we have now adopted a more DevOps type model from a release perspective and a more agile model for release perspective. So since we launched, and Tag mentioned this earlier, since we launched a year ago, we've had different revisions. As I mentioned earlier, these revisions are non-disruptively rolled out, so there's no need for a downtime. There's no months of planning to actually make this happen. It truly is a fast and easy way to roll out. And it's evident by the fact that a lot of our business-critical application customers, including SAP users, quickly adopt the new versions to take advantage of some of the innovation, whether it is higher performance, integrated file services on the Windows side, using some of the functionality around machine learning, as we've talked about, and other areas like block services, etc. on that front. Now, we talked a little bit about block services, and it's probably important for me to point out that Nutanix not only has the ability to run your SAP application servers and databases, we can also support external databases and more specifically support external databases as a storage environment. So a big part of the Enterprise Cloud philosophy is to deliver IT services to other platforms. So we've added file services, and most recently we're adding ABS, which is Acropolis Block Services. So again, using the HX series, you can now serve the data to external database servers, whether it's Oracle, whether it's SQL Server, DB2, or SAP ASC, and basically use your Nutanix not only for your web servers, your Citrix environment, and your application servers like your NetWeaver production and pre-production servers, but also serve the databases that may be still sitting externally for reasons of support for licensing, etc. So this gives you the ability to utilize your HX series better. It protects your existing server investment as well, but you get all the benefits associated with the web scale environment. Excuse me. With that, let me quickly also go and talk a little bit about the benefits here. So we do have some clear benefits. So Nutanix worked very closely with IDC to survey 10 customers of Nutanix to understand what is the return on investment. Now, this may not be interesting from a overall perspective to a basis administrator, but I bet you your infrastructure counterparts would be very interested, given the fact that they're spending 71% less time managing their environment, they're spending less time dealing with unplanned downtime instances, and they're able to deploy their storage a lot quicker. So again, the full report is available from Nutanix if you're interested, nutanix.com/resources. So, Tag, let me turn it back over to you to quickly touch on some of the areas around SAP and HX.
Sure, thank you. As everyone on this call probably knows, the SAP application landscapes have grown increasingly more complex. There's more need or demand than ever to consolidate systems, optimize system utilization, reduce administrative efforts, and lower total costs. So, it really is a demanding set of applications to manage, as well as the infrastructure associated with those applications. With traditional hypervisors, they can scale up. You get more cores per socket, more powerful cores, and so that also means that you have a lower overhead for virtualization. So it makes it easier to virtualize and consolidate those workloads and have minimal impact on application performance. It also helps from a high availability perspective and enabling high availability in a seamless way. If you look at the hypervisor support, traditionally in an SAP landscape, VMware is supported kind of across the board for both Windows and Linux applications, and KVM and Hyper-V are also supported for specific Linux or Windows environments. But with the Nutanix solution with Lenovo HX series, you do have the choice. You can implement the environment that best fits your landscape. Sachin, anything else you want to add from an OS and database support perspective?
Yes, absolutely. There's one other hypervisor that we have since added since we created these slides, and that was announced at our .next conference in Vienna, where Lenovo participated as a sponsor, and that was the Nutanix AHV support. So Nutanix AHV support has been added to the list. This is again supported by SAP in a controlled availability fashion. So we do have that available, and the guest OSs that are supported here are SUSE and Red Hat. So they are Linux-based deployments in both 2-tier and 3-tier models. So again, just to quickly recap, Lenovo HX now also supports AHV with Linux, so SUSE and Red Hat, and this is in a controlled availability fashion. And so if you're interested, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help you, with the details on that front.
Right, yeah, that is very new news, right?
Yes, indeed. So we talked a little bit about, the different architectural pieces, etc. Now, very specific to SAP, I want to make sure that we emphasize what are some of the benefits. So the first thing is we're talking about consolidation on one platform. It's one platform for both transactional and analytical deployments. So if you're using it for business intelligence and data warehousing, etc., you could use the same platform for transactional processing. And this is a function of the architecture that we talked about earlier, where we're basically offering applications the ability to get the best performance and not necessarily have two conflicting applications disrupt each other as they would in a traditional environment. So that's the first angle. The second thing is all the resiliency functionality that is built in that keeps the applications up and running. And then third is talk about cutting down on a lot of the operational complexity. And this is where we go specifically back to some of the capabilities on not only Prism, but also XClarity, which will basically be covered here in the slide. So Tag, why don't you quickly talk about the actual HX series appliance?
Sure. So the HX series appliance, we introduced the first appliances about a year ago based on Intel Haswell processors. They, as I mentioned, use our 1U and 2U server platforms. These server platforms are based on Intel E5 processors. They have a long history and tradition of enterprise class reliability and availability, features built into the systems themselves. So combining those features with the Nutanix software really gives some significant added advantage. We have a range of platforms to focus on different workload needs. So we have compute-heavy platform that is optimized more for CPU performance. We have a storage-heavy platform which is more optimized for storage capacity, and then a performance platform and a platform designed for low latency. So you really have kind of a choice of platforms that you can choose from to best meet your needs for the given application or workload. If you look at these, here's an example of how these different HX series platforms could be implemented. We have the HX 3500, which is the compute-heavy platform, where you may want to use it for VDI or web server type applications. The HX 5500 is more storage heavy, so you may want to use that for your backup disaster recovery application, something related to big data, or the file server. And then for the performance-oriented applications, such as many of your SAP applications, for example, it offers very good I/O performance, and so it would be a good fit for your SAP applications, your databases such as Oracle and SQL Server, and any other application where performance and I/O are key considerations. This is just kind of a little more detail on the HX 7500, for example, and this is available both in Haswell as well as a Broadwell processor-based configuration. The Broadwell system is the HX 7510, for example. So, and really, it's designed for key workloads like different SAP applications, and provides a scalable platform to consolidate your application tier or two-tier type environment. And as I mentioned, the HX series is based on our X3650 platform in this case, which is renowned for high availability and some of the RAS features that are included in the platform itself. So again, for the key enterprise application like SAP, it's a very good fit. And again, this is just showing further detail on the different HX series appliance offerings. So you have a range of processors you can choose from, different memory configurations which you meet your requirements, a mix of SSD and traditional hard drives to meet the performance requirements, and your choice of networking options. So really, this just shows an example of how you can consolidate the different applications on a given HX series platform and be able to scale that platform as your applications, your users, your environment grows. So now let's talk a little bit about SAP HANA. And now that you understand how you can scale your application tier, let's talk about SAP HANA. This chart shows an example where you have the application server tier on the left side with the Lenovo HX series. If you're interested or planning or currently running SAP HANA, you know that HANA has to run on a certified appliance or in a TDI configuration based on a certified platform. So this shows an example of how you can implement an SAP HANA landscape, combining the Lenovo HX series with Nutanix for the application server tier and having a certified appliance for the HANA database tier. Sasha, you have some comments about this that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to quickly point out this is a great bridge solution for folks who are looking to HANA. We acknowledge that this is the direction going forward, and this is where we're definitely adding additional functionality, and we're working closely with Lenovo and SAP to build out a roadmap for the future that unfortunately we can't talk about right now. But the intent is really to give you guys a good bridge to HANA, where you can start with your application servers, including your existing NetWeaver deployments, your S4 HANA application server deployments on the HX series today. And that's where we can take advantage of a lot of the functionality that we provide from a cloning and a test perspective, etc. And then you can use your Lenovo systems, the 3850X6 and the 3860X6 for production and dev environments, and then basically getting the best of both worlds from a performance perspective, keeping it closer to the bare metal. Now, from a value perspective, I also want to quickly just point out, and we've used the example of FlexPod earlier to just show how we're simplifying the whole management stack. And I do want to point out that another area where this comes into play is the concept of power, space, and cooling. And this is something that is often overlooked because, again, a lot of folks are coming from traditional Unix environments, which were far less efficient than your x86 systems. And we're talking about, again, another order of magnitude improvement here. So if you look at it, on the left-hand side, we have a converged solution that's using the traditional FlexPod deployment, and this could be replaced with a vBlock or any other converged infrastructure deployment where you had rack servers and switching and fabric interconnect and storage switches, etc., and the storage itself. And to basically deliver, I would say the equivalent of like 300,000 SAPs, we basically are now able to do that in an 8U form factor, where basically 4 HX 7500s can deliver 300,000 SAPs. That's actually very good density, and if you were to add to that the Ethernet switching, essentially a 10U package. So 1/3 the space, far less from a power cooling perspective, and definitely improves the efficiency. So Tag, can you quickly also talk a little bit about the management stack here, including XClarity and Prism?
Certainly, yeah. So part of the value of the partnership has been working closely together to integrate those different software pieces. So Prism from Nutanix, and then the Lenovo XClarity software from a infrastructure systems management perspective. And with XClarity, it does provide kind of a single centralized point of management from a server and infrastructure point of view, and can help automate tasks and speed certain data center operations. It's a very open systems management platform, and can help you in terms of providing detailed hardware inventory and monitoring, fault detection, and things like that. And the work that we've done together really has been to closely tie or integrate XClarity with Nutanix and Prism. So kind of the net benefit really is reduced downtime, seamless firmware updates, more accurate hardware health reporting, and gives you the ability to get a detailed inventory view. So from the detailed features are listed there on the right. You can discover servers, do the monitoring and health status, et cetera. So this integration is intended really to make it seamless, to ensure that we've got the best possible user experience, both from a server as well as a management perspective. In addition, Lenovo also provides services to help you with your HX series and Nutanix deployments. The resources that we have on board, can help in terms of helping set up your environment. We also have support offerings, integrated support offerings in place where we can coordinate any support issues that may come up. So again, integration, coordination, working together to ensure that we can support your environments in the best possible way. And our professional services teams do have a great deal of experience both with SAP infrastructure, application landscapes, and from a Nutanix perspective, an SAP HANA perspective, and can help accelerate your deployment times. So the types of services delivered, so they have deployment services, migration services. They can implement a VDI environment for you. They can help you in terms of performing health checks of the clusters in your environment, and can provide technical resources to assist with other activities based on what your needs may be. Nutanix also offers some services as well, but the services that we have can certainly help optimize your environment for cloud-based implementation. From a serviceability standpoint, we do have a large comprehensive network worldwide, so no matter where your data center is located, we have resources to help you to assist. All right, now let's shift gears and talk a little bit about SAP Operations. Sasha.
Thank you, Tag. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we also cover are some of the day 2 and day 3 operations. So what after we deploy there? And there are a couple of areas that we're going to focus on, starting with the concept of SAP system copy and refresh, backup and recovery, and then disaster recovery, capacity planning, and such. So let's start quickly by talking about the whole concept of system copy and refresh. And that can be done for a variety of different reasons, whether it's for QA purposes, dev purposes, training, etc. And the goal here is to show that Nutanix, again, treats our virtual machines as individualized objects. So we don't necessarily operate at the LUN level or the volume level. We operate at the virtual disk level. This means that the Nutanix system, the Lenovo HX system, is aware of the fact that this is a virtual machine, and it could be a Netweaver setup, or it could be the whole landscape where you are talking about multiple Netweaver systems. You're talking about the AC SC setup, or you're looking at a couple of the databases, etc. We can treat that as one entity and essentially clone the entire landscape. Now, that cloning is done in a very elegant fashion. It doesn't require a full copy of the data, so they can be done very quickly. And so if you're looking at a dev environment and if you have developers, you can essentially create a clone of your production environment very quickly and then run the right set of tools on the SAP side to update the landscape and give each of the developers their own high-performance environment. Now, because, again, we have the concept of data locality and we have the concept of storage tiering, each developer gets their own high-performance environment, and that's quite efficient on that front. Now, also, we can also automate workflows around cloning itself. So if you have, say, multiple clusters where you have, or you have multiple sites where you're running your production in one site and your development on another and a QA on a third, you can essentially automate a lot of the workflow using the Nutanix APIs and HX series. You basically can have your virtual machine go from one environment to the next and essentially automate that workflow. What's also interesting is that now that HX series also supports AHV on their environment, and we can run SAP on there, you can have a mixed environment where your production could stay on ESXi, but your production doesn't necessarily have to reflect what you have in your dev environment or a QA environment, and you can use AHV in those environments, taking advantage of cross-hypervisor replication. And that VM-centric approach is essentially simplifies the entire stack. Now, that is also complemented by the fact that we also work very closely with partners like Commvault. Now, Commvault, as if you know, is a leader in the backup and recovery space. So working, again, together with Lenovo HX and Nutanix, we can take advantage of Commvault's own backup and recovery mechanism and test and dev mechanism. What's interesting about the Commvault setup is that it basically is taking advantage of the Nutanix native snapshots by integrating using its IntelliSnap technology. So using Commvault, you essentially can trigger a backup, but on the back end, it takes advantage of native Nutanix snapshots. So the whole concept of a backup window, where you are spending time just backing up the data, sequentially taking the data out, is practically eliminated. You can take a quick point-in-time copy and then essentially taking advantage of native integration between Commvault and SAP, backing up the tools and querying all the databases, etc., and then use those snapshot copies or backups to essentially create their clones, etc., or even back it up offsite, so you essentially have an offsite backup. This is something, again, that is available today, so if you are interested, we definitely invite you to talk to us. So in a nutshell, I want to quickly make sure I repeat this. Nutanix and Lenovo HX is integrated with Commvault Data Protection 11. And we essentially are integrating with the IntelliSnap, where you use Commvault's setup to essentially take the backups and essentially use IntelliSnap to manage the snapshots on the Nutanix side, create copies, and then leverage it either for a backup archival, create copies for the purposes of test and dev, or use it for migration purposes. And this is available today. Now, more broadly, though, we get asked, how do I maintain high availability across the entire board? And this is where we always propose working with the virtualization tier. So on the virtualization stack, we do have support for HA, again, because Nutanix provides for a shared storage without actually using a separate storage tier. HA is supported, so you essentially can have your virtual machines sitting on multiple different systems, and if they fail, if the system itself fails, you can restart them on other nodes. If we were to look at this from a SAP landscape perspective, your database can be basically set up in an HA pair. So if the primary copy that you see on the left-hand side fails, it can be restarted on another node on the Nutanix system. Similarly, the Netweaver application servers can be scaled out as well. Now, you can also take advantage of affinity and anti-affinity rules as well to ensure that some of the applications are co-located or separated out. So, for example, you could have your Netweaver application servers be separated out across multiple clusters using anti-affinity rules, including DRS, or on the case of Nutanix AHV, affinity and anti-affinity rules. Now, for systems like ASCS, where there's a need to keep the RPO and RTO essentially at 0, you can also take advantage of ESXi's fault tolerance, or FT. This is one case where FT does get used in the field. So again, that is supported here on Nutanix, again, because we do have the concept of shared storage, and also there is no caveat from a support perspective for ESXi, FT, or fault tolerance. So in a nutshell, again, you can take advantage of HA, DRS, and FT to essentially keep your environment up and running on a virtualized platform. And this, again, is another point I wanted to emphasize. Tag mentioned this earlier. By using virtualization, you essentially simplify the concept of high availability. Now, from a Nutanix perspective, we also have a wide range of features that are complementary in nature, and these are more from a data protection and disaster recovery perspective. So we can take snapshots, as I mentioned earlier, and these snapshots can be maintained on the local system. That functionality on the HX series is called Time Stream, where essentially you can create point-in-time copies. And so you can keep point-in-time copies of your log files, your database, etc., and all of that's possible. Now, if there's a need to archive this offsite and not necessarily have it locally, we also have support for Cloud Connect, which will allow you to create backup copies in AWS and Azure. We can also set up two different sites here with HX on both of these sites. And as I mentioned earlier, one site can be ESXi, the other site can be AHV, or they can be both ESXi or both Hyper-V. And the intent is to create remote replication functionality where you essentially have one site replicating to the other. And it can be done in a one-to-one model, one-to-many model, or many-to-one model. So you could have one copy go to multiple sites, or have multiple sites copy onto one site. And the typical RPO and RTO for remote replication is minutes. But if there's a case for zero RPO, again, there was a question that was asked earlier, and we'll get back to that here at the end, is that we also have support for zero RPO, and that's with metro availability functionality. This is where we keep a synchronous copy of the data across two sites, and so you get the ability to get a hot standby that can be where the VM can be restarted in case the primary site goes down. Now, just to summarize kind of from an availability perspective, the HX series has a wide range of features to essentially keep your environment up and running. And that is also included at the core system level. As we heard earlier, Tag mentioned that Lenovo HX series is is a proud member of the family that was voted to be the highest server reliability from a measure and a metrics perspective. And that is definitely complemented by Nutanix software, which is web scale in nature. So there's a inherent characteristic of self-healing where we are able to deal with disk failures, etc., by basically allowing for multiple copies of the data that are efficiently stored across the board. In addition to that, we also have the ability to upgrade our systems in a non-disruptive fashion. This also, again, gives you the availability features and the availability or uptime associated with this environment. Now, we've talked a lot about the concept of, creating copies, taking advantage of cloning, keeping systems available, etc. I also want to point out that Nutanix and Lenovo together have created a wide range of best practices that are applicable to SAP landscapes. These are, documents that are available from both Lenovo and Nutanix. And these enumerate various different areas. And so we look at it from a virtualization perspective. We look at it from a design perspective, so sizing and specifying the right models. We look at it from an application setup perspective. We look at it from a database perspective, and we look at it from a data protection disaster recovery perspective. So these are available here. Again, we have them for SQL Server. We have them from Oracle. We from a database tier perspective, and then we are also publishing on an ongoing basis a lot of material around SAP, including an SAP solution note that is available today. Now, if you are interested in learning more, again, reach out to your Nutanix and Lenovo reps, and they can definitely help you with this information. Very specifically around databases, for example, we talk about separation of the different files and logs as applicable to get the best performance, using huge pages associated with your Linux environment. So you're taking advantage of large contingent contiguous parts of the memory, using multiple PV-SCSI adapters in virtualization to basically get the best performance and to minimize the queue depths and latencies associated with storage, using multiple vDisks, again, with the same reason of reducing the latency on the storage side, and then using LVM on Linux to, again, simplify the disk layout. So even though you're using multiple vDisks on the back end, you're essentially consolidating that. So there are, again, numerous best practices that we can definitely talk about there that are available. Now, we have time for one quick customer example. So let me quickly point out a customer example here. And the example that I will use is ASM. This is the one that is on the left-hand side of the screen. Again, we have other examples like Excelitas and Valpak, and these are available to you as well. But I will focus on ASM. So ASM is a multinational corporation that focuses on semiconductor equipment. They're headquartered in Netherlands, and they have their IT operations out of Singapore. We worked very closely with IDC to capture this customer example, so we do have the ability to share more details there. But their goal was to really consolidate their SAP and Oracle environment to improve their licensing and to get better performance and simpler management. They were working off some older infrastructure, and the challenge in their specific case was slow batch performance that was tied back to their operations side, their manufacturing operations. So from a remedy perspective, they went down the solution powered by Nutanix software, and they found a 5x improvement in performance. So their batch jobs went from 9.5 hours approximately to 1.5 hour approximately. And that was, again, a tremendous improvement because now they were able to do a couple of different models for batch jobs in the time that they were previously taking for one batch job, which would run pretty much overnight. And the amount of time that they spent was significantly reduced, because, again, they were spending less time on the management side. They could apply that on the business process side. Again, we invite you to look at this. There's a link down below in the slides that are going to be distributed to see this a little more in detail, or you could also visit nutanix.com/resources for this information. So, Tag, with that, let me hand it back over to you to quickly wrap this up for us.
Sure, thank you, and thanks everyone for your time today. Hopefully you've gained some insights as to how you can further optimize your SAP application landscapes. The advantages of implementing hyperconverged infrastructure really can help simplify the environment. It can help reduce your rack space, power, and cooling requirements. You're getting rid of a lot of that hardware you don't really need any longer. And it can further optimize the management of your applications and your systems. The enhanced systems management capabilities that this solution provides is significant and can provide some significant savings. So in the end, you'd be looking at lower total cost of ownership, improved management, and the ability to easily scale your landscape. So a number of significant benefits. All right.
Yeah, Susan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Tag. At this point, we will begin to start the Q&A. If you have any questions, now is the time to submit them using the purple Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Okay, we got a few audience questions. The first one is, what is minimum cluster size?
So minimum cluster size is 3 nodes, and but you can go up to hundreds of nodes. There is no theoretical limit, but there are practical limits that you would need to consider. So the minimum cluster size is 3.
Thank you. And next question is, can I continue to use my Oracle HPUX deployment and Lenovo HX for the Netweaver app server?
Yes, you could do that. You could run your Netweaver application servers on the HX cluster, and you could continue to connect to Oracle running on HPUX for any reason that you want to stay with Oracle on HPUX. You could have that hybrid environment until such time that you're ready to migrate to a virtualized environment.
Thank you. Next question is, what types of RDBMS are supported on the Lenovo HX?
Pretty much every RDBMS that SAP supports, SAP Netweaver supports at this time is supported on Lenovo HX except for HANA. And we talked about a bridge to HANA where we could continue to run SAP HANA on a standalone certified server from Lenovo. But every RDBMS that SAP supports is supported on HX.
Thank you. And is there any special licensing needed for this solution?
If I understand the question correctly, for Nutanix, to run SAP on Nutanix, there is no specific or any special licensing that's required. That's between you all and SAP, and those licenses will work well on the Nutanix platform.
Thank you. And how can I get 0 RPO for my environment?
Sachin touched upon this question previously. We have a technology called Metro Availability, where you could have a solution that can support 0 RPO.
All right, and can I use my existing backup software? I'm using Commvault for backing up and recovering my database on Oracle.
Yes, and again, Sachin touched upon this earlier as well. So Commvault is one of our partners that we work very closely with, and we are deeply integrated with their technology. So you could use Commvault for backing up your Oracle database.
Thank you for that, Krishna. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Tag, and Krishna for a great webcast. On behalf of ASUG, I'd like to thank Nutanix as well as all of you who took the time out of today to attend this webcast. Once again, the recording and the slides from today's program will be posted to the ASUG website, and all registrants will receive an email with the link to those materials. With that, I would like to close today's webcast. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.